Good afternoon, Jared sir.
Yes, I can hear.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, one and all. I think we can start the session.
Yeah.
Before that, let me introduce today's guest with us, Dr. Cherian P. Kurian. He has completed his PG from Indore University, Madhya Pradesh, and PhD from Nagpur University. His research interests are in social policy and social change, psychosocial determinants of health, psychosocial interventions, active aging, addictive behavior, child protection, youth and development, migration, participatory development, and governance. Dr. Cherian is currently serving as the Director, School of Social Work, Marian College, Kutiganam. He has supervised more than 10 PhDs and several publications and books are to his credit. He has received training in cooperation from Canada, participatory evaluation from Singapore, and he has participated in the national workshop on building institutions of eminence under the aegis of the Office of Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh, organized by the McKinsey in 2005, New Delhi. He started his career as a medical social worker, shifted to development practice, and worked with leading national NGOs, international funding NGOs like World Vision India and Lutheran World Relief, and joined as reader in social work at Shahu Institute, Shivaji University, Kolhapur. He then became the founder principal of Yeshwantrao Chavan Institute of Social Sciences, Shivaji University, and also served as the director of Kave Institute, University of Pune, Maharashtra. Dr. Cherian was also professor and head of an accredited master's program in public health informatics, jointly offered by the University of South Florida, USA, and International Institute of Information Technology, Pune. He served in Maharashtra for a long span of 20 years as an academic administrator and social work educator. He has offered consultancy services in community mobilization for drinking water and sanitation, capacity building, participatory planning and strengthening the social self-institutions, community organization, corporate social responsibility, NGO restructuring, and HR practices and social research. As an IQAC consultant, he has also conducted several training programs in outcome-based education, curriculum design, instructional strategies, assessment and innovative pedagogies for active learning for teachers. Sir, we are lucky to have you here for a session on curriculum design. Welcome, sir.
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
Sir, please unmute yourself. Yeah, okay.
Okay. I'm just saying that it is really a pleasure to be with the tribe of teaching community, and uh, and I just want to thank you for that, you know, big introduction, which I don't deserve that much. Of course, I have some experience in certain areas, and today I'll be very happy to share those experience with you. From my long experience as a teacher, I know that the attention span of people is very much limited. We all know that it is difficult to listen more than 10 minutes. Therefore, I have only very few slides, about 11 slides to share with you, and I will stop there and then I will ask for questions. If you have clarification needed, some questions, I will try to address that if I know. If I don't know, I will say that. Now, today I was asked to share something about curriculum design. Uh, First of all, it's a very big topic. I mean, but within the time frame, let me give a brief idea about curriculum design. The first thing is there's a difference between curriculum uh, design and curriculum development. These are two different things. When you talk about curriculum development, we are talking about what and why of that, meaning that why we need a curriculum and what is that curriculum. Basically, it's talking about the policy matters, what are the goals of education, all those matters. But when we talk about curriculum design, that is how of curriculum, the structure of that one, and so on. So we will limit ourselves to curriculum design today, and I will share few thoughts about that one, and then leave this forum open for questions. Am I audible now, Rani? Am I audible? Some participants are there. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
because this another problem with me, people like me, because we used to see faces and talk. Now we have to talk to an inanimate screen. So that difficulty is there. Kindly bear with me. So we will straight away go to the curriculum design aspect. Uh, I hope my screen is visible now. Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So, what is curriculum? So, let us understand what is curriculum first. Uh, a curriculum is a series of documents that answers the basic question about how the program is going to be delivered. So, that is the first thing. It's a series of documents. And another way to explain that it's an educational plan. It's an educational plan. Acknowledges that learning is optimized only when multiple facets of the learning process are synergized, organized, and integrated over time. Uh, so we are talking about a whole plan of learning, educational plan. Thirdly, each components of a curriculum answers different questions that you may have as a teacher or as an administrator. So that's about the curriculum. So I hope you understood what is a curriculum. It's an educational plan. It has a number of components which answers different aspects of that educational plan. Then let me give briefly about various components of this curriculum. First part is we need a rationale for this curriculum. Why should we develop? What is the purpose of this one? That should be clear. So the first component is rationale for this curriculum. Secondly, uh, what are the program outcomes? We must know that what are the outcomes of that one. Today we talk about outcomes. I am sure that as teachers, all of you are aware about the outcome based education, UGC and the university. Everybody now talking about outcome based education. So basically, outcome means the participant, the student must know and do by the end of the program. They must be able to perform that certain things. Earlier, as teachers, we know we go to the class and our usual terminology is cover the portion. So it is from the perspective of the teacher. So we were earlier in the teacher-centric approach, but in the outcome-based, basically a student-centric thing. So here we say that we must be able to state by the end of the program, what the student is able to do and what the student is able to know. That we must specify. Then another component is need analysis. What the student needs to learn or wants to learn. Uh, so how do we get this one? You can go for a survey of employers, alumni, industry, social leaders, students, etc. So you have to do a need analysis based on the information you collect from the stakeholders of education. So that is another important thing. Then we have to also do a situation analysis. That means you have to find out if there are any constraints while delivering, either any social factors or institutional factors or client factors or change factors and so on. So we need to do a situational analysis. Then fifth component is we also have to decide the program logistics, the duration of the program, the credit, all those things. You have to, uh, you know, uh, plan for that also. Sixth one is the syllabus, basically the content, the course, what are the courses we need to include in the program and the content of that one. And also its logical order of the content. All those things comes in the syllabus component. Then the seventh one is the material selection. What materials, what textbooks, articles, videos, the resources for learning. That's another important component of a curriculum. Next comes the entry assessment. See, those who have completed, B.Ed, or those who have studied education and all those pedagogies and other things, they know that prior knowledge is very important, because you cannot build your knowledge out of nothing. So the existing knowledge is very important. So you need to do a entry level assessment. You have to state the basic requirement to study a particular program. Without that, you may not be able to help the students to learn, build the additional knowledge, new knowledge, if without the earlier additional basic knowledge. That's the idea of that one. So the entry assessment we have to state. Then ongoing assessment. That's another important component, particularly in the outcome-based, in the continuous assessment. We call it continuous assessment, which is formative. Meaning, assessment is not of learning, but for learning. See, there's a difference between assessment for learning. Means it becomes a facilitating factor. Give feedback to the students and help them to learn. That is the meaning of continuous assessment. So it's a formative kind of. Then we also have, exit level assessment, that is summative, or end semester and year end examination, what we call evaluation. So exit assessment also another important component. And then 11th, we need to also have a program educational objectives assessment, meaning that this assessment will be done after the completion of the program, after the student has gone to the market, and after 3 to 5 years we may conduct a survey to find out whether we are able to achieve, or the student is able to achieve the program educational objective. So these are the components of a curriculum. Any questions so far? I have just shared about the various components, 11 components of a curriculum. Any questions? Any clarification needed? Are you with me? Hello? Hello?
So can you just go the previous slide, sir? Previous slide, sixth point.
Pardon? Sixth point.
Yes, sixth point. I missed that.
Syllabus.
Thank you, sir.
Syllabus. The content part of that. There are various courses and also its order. Is that okay?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay. Please respond, because I also feel very uncomfortable to talk to the screen. So in between I'll stop and then you can respond. So I hope that you are
Sure.
okay. So we'll go to the next step. Now I will just discuss. There are different approaches in curriculum. Like you have this what you call subject centered design, learner centered design, problem centered design, and all things. I'm not going to all those details. There are so many things, but I will just stick to today's session only to the curriculum design in the OBE framework. OBE means outcome based education framework, which we all have to now follow. That's why I stick to that one. Okay. In the OBE framework, when you implement, when you design a curriculum, you have to first start with the institutional level. Well, we should start with the vision and mission of the institution or the department. That's very important. Vision, as you know, that is an ideation, an ideal plane. Mission means, that how do we achieve that one? So that's a mission. Many of the institutions, some of the best institutions, they call themselves as mission-driven institution. That means the mission must be very clear, measurable, achievable. That is very important. So that is the first thing. And your program educational objectives generally based on that. I mean, then it is also connected to your mission statement. Then, in the institutional level, another aspect is the framework for curriculum, the number of credits and credit distribution, all those things you may have to think about it. Then you come to, after institutional level, we come to the program level. You're all familiar. I hope that college teachers are familiar now with these terms, PEO, Program Educational Objectives. That means, as I mentioned, it will be assessed not immediately after they complete the program, when after they go to the field or the industry or the organization in the workplace, then we assess after 3-4 years, we'll conduct an assessment to find out whether they are able to achieve those objectives. Then comes program outcomes. In my view, there is a confusion here in India. This basically, it is called graduate attributes, but we call it here program outcomes. Okay, meaning that some of the common aspects that is required to succeed in life. If you look at the program outcomes of institutions, it's a common thing like communicative competence, teamwork, critical thinking. These are all needed for life. So in a way, it is we talk about these attributes. The institution is stating that whoever comes to this institution, whoever completes the programs from this institution will have, all of them will have these attributes. That's the idea of that one. The program outcomes when you talk about that one, graduate attributes. So every institution nowadays they have this take, they have this statement of various program outcomes, or we call it graduate attributes. I hope you understood that one, but if you have questions, I will be able to clarify that one. Now, next is PSO. PSO is basically program specific outcome. This is pertaining to the particular program, the particular discipline you have chosen. So that is where the program specific outcome. For example, you have a program in, let us say, biology or zoology or whatever may be, or social work or administration, business administration. So that's a program. So that is the outcome of that particular program. Then, of course, we also have the think about this, scheduling of the courses. What schedule? Or what are the schedule? It can be a trimester system or a semester system or year system or so on. Then we have to think about the course level. Course level design, we have to think about the course level outcome. That means we must say that what the student will be able to perform by the end of the course, or what the student will be able to do by the end of the course. That is what we talk about course outcomes. So in a program, there are a number of courses, and every course should have outcomes. That means you have to state in that course outcome what is the content, how the content, and also you have to state the content delivery. What are the theory part, the practical part? It may be some project part may be there, some assignments may be there, tutorial, seminar. All those things comes under the course level. Then next important thing that once we decide the course level, we also have to we have to decide about the assessment part. I mean, how do we assess these outcomes in the class level, the course level, program level, institutional level, all levels of, assessment. We have to have a clarity. We have to make some statements. Some detailing is required. Then we also have to create a program and course alignment in order to make it more balanced. When you have a program, you should see whether it has got all the need, it is fulfilling all the need. Therefore, we have to make a program and course an alignment in order to see the balance in the curriculum. This is an example of a curriculum alignment. At the horizontal level, you have different program specific outcomes. That you can see that one. PSO1, PSO2, 3, 4, like that. In the vertical axis, you have the various courses. So you place all the courses in the vertical axis and see whether, and these courses has to be stated in 3 terms. Generally that is what we do. Whether that course is an introductory level, or it is in a mastery level, or it is in an advanced or maybe developmental level. So you have to decide what level of that course. Then you will get an idea of the whole alignment of the course. Okay. And I already mentioned what is the difference between curriculum development and curriculum design. Then, of course, some of the types of curriculum design I shared. There are one is called subject-centered, curriculum design. There, the focus is on the subject, and under again different categories. It will be discipline specific, and it may be a broad field design, and also correlational design, meaning one course should have relation with other courses, that kind of an arrangement. That is in the subject centered. The learner centered, today we talk about learner centered approaches, and there are 3, 4 different approaches there: child centered and experiential centered, humanistic design, and critical pedagogy. These are different approaches one may adapt there. Then we have also problem-centered curriculum design. Some of the vocational-based problem, because the problems are focused, and you solve that issue of vocational issues. Then the social-based problems. You can have a curriculum in that way. You can also have a curriculum in the environmental-based problem to resolve the problems of the environmental issues. These are the various kind of curriculum, and this is what I just want to share. I just want to stop here, and now the floor is open. If you have questions, I'll be happy to respond if I can. Over to Rani, please. Coordinate if somebody is having questions. Either you send the questions, you ask the questions. I will try to respond to that. Hello. Hello. Yes. What happened? Everybody is sleeping?
No, we are here.
Yeah. Please, if the participants, if they have some questions, I will try to respond to that in this curriculum design. I hope some of you have some experience in curriculum design. as board of studies members, or maybe in autonomous colleges, they now have to do that. So if you ask me questions, I'll be happy to share my understanding of that.
Sir, would it be possible to give an example? Let's say if you want to make in life science. So, with the present system, which is under the new education policy, what are the important points? Like, this is an outline, but can you just highlight with one subject, any subject, not necessarily
Yeah,
life science, but
no,
any
life
subject?
science. You want to say something about life science, isn't it?
Yes, sir, if
Okay,
possible.
fine, fine. So basically, uh, okay, the curriculum design, basically this curriculum design is what we call it, that is, we use a concept called backward design. You heard about that? Backward design. Meaning, you have to find out what are the outcomes for the end, what are the end product. Okay, so uh, in life science or in any subjects, what they do, they go to the stakeholders, various stakeholders, and then conduct a study and collect data from the stakeholders, from the planners, from the community leaders, and from the alumni, or from the people who are working in those fields, like life science, if there are people from the life science, and they come to an understanding what kind of skill sets, what kinds of knowledge base such a program should give to students. So they start with that one, and then they work backward. That is why it is called backward design. I hope you understand. Eh? Hello?
Yes, sir, thank you so much.
Yeah. So that is how it is worked out. But in our system, we never thought, we do in a different way. We do the just opposite. We do in a forward way. I mean, we find something good, we just add it without any alignment to the end product. In the new system, if you want to develop a good curriculum, there should be it should be well aligned. It should be very clear to the to the end product. Whatever you need to the to contribute to the end product, that only we'll include that one. But as a teacher, I know that we never bother to look at that way. We never thought of making an alignment, kind of assessment of the curriculum to see whether it is well aligned to the goals that is already stated. It is not like that. And again, there's also, I just want to casually share that there's a difference between outcome and objective. When you talk about program objective, it is from the perspective of the teacher, the instructor. But when we talk about the outcome, it is from the perspective of the student. Means by the end of the student, what the student is able to do. That is what we have to understand. We have to state. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. It was very, the
Ask-
way you explained the difference between outcome and objective is very important. And this is a fact that teachers tend to do it from their perspective. What they can do better, they can teach better. What they feel is important, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Nowadays, I go to the class, and I teachers, particularly to teachers, I share this one. If what Google can give, if teacher is going and give the same thing, I think we are doing a disservice, you know. Uh, but unfortunately, that is happening, and I mean that is happening. So probably in the new paradigm of outcome-based, I hope that teachers will also realize and change their identity as information giver to a designer of learning experience. And if today somebody asks me what's my job, I will be very happy and very proudly I will say that I am a designer of learning experience, because I know that unless the students engage their mind, if they are engaged in the learning process, there is no knowledge production, because that is the reality, you know. So as teachers, I hope you understand when I share this one. Yeah, thank
Yes,
you.
sir. Yes, sir. So
Yes.
it's like the flip model, as we are suggesting these days, that
Yeah, yeah.
to explain to the students and not just make them mug up what is already available on the Google.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah. Next, any other question? You ask me. You have the freedom to ask any question. Only thing that I will choose. If I know, I will share. Otherwise, I'll say I don't know. Yes, please ask me questions. I like that. At least I know that what are the questions. You want to challenge me of anything which I shared right now? That's also welcome. Teachers, everybody is sleeping. No questions means, we can stop. Hello? I know only the name of Rani. That's why I'm calling Rani. Rani, where are you?
Dear participants, if you have some questions, kindly unmute yourself and ask them.
Yeah. Please, please encourage them to ask questions. At least let us have questions, if not all answers.
Sir, is it necessary that in this outcome-based education framework, we must have both formative and summative assessments?
Oh, it is very, very important to have what you call formative and summative assessment. As I mentioned that, formative assessment, basically there's a difference between assessment and evaluation. We use words without properly understanding the meaning behind it. Assessment is always a building process. When you say
Okay.
evaluation, it is the judgment. Okay. I used to give this good example, like, what is the difference between a continuous assessment and an evaluation? It's like a cook, tasting food and a guest tasting food. Then what's the difference? When a cook tastes food, for what purpose? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Eh? You ladies, you know that you prepare a food and then you taste it. For what? To see what ingredients is lacking or how it is the taste.
Prove it,
And
sir.
if something is not good, what you
Yes.
will do?
Everything is okay.
Eh?
To see whether everything is okay.
To everything is okay. If that is not okay, what you will do?
We'll make the necessary adjustment.
Exactly. That is. But what happens when the guest comes and tastes food?
We
End
can
of
do nothing. We can just say it is
you
okay.
can do nothing. So now you answer me: is that continuous assessment and the end assessment is necessary?
Yes. Yes, sir. Both are.
So you got the point.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Clear.
So ideally, if you ask me, give me freedom today, I will ask the universities, to stop at the end assessment, only go for the continuous assessment. See, this assessment can also, what you call, destroy the joy of learning. Okay. Okay.
Yes, sir.
If you really follow the outcome-based learning, continuous assessment, there is no need to have an end assessment. Okay. Even if you need to have, it should be minimal. You
Now,
can
that's why I was
avoid,
asking. Yeah.
you can avoid all these what you call exam fear and other things, because outcome, what is outcome? The performance of the students. If they continuously perform, that means they have learned. Why do you
Yes,
need
sir.
to
Yes.
have an end? If at all you need, make it 80-20. 80% continuous assessment, 20% a summative kind of assessment, for maybe just to feel good, if at all you need. But unfortunately, our policy people or university people doesn't understand this one. I feel very sorry about them. They talk about education. What education? Huh? And the
That's,
MG University.
that's why the
Huh?
That's
Yes.
why the question, sir. That's why I asked this question, sir. Because we
Ah,
are talking about output-based education, we need performance evaluation, and the
yeah,
summative when it comes, it
yeah,
affects the whole
yeah.
framework.
Yeah, it should be the way. Even after first session, you see whether they have learned. If they have not learned, give them remedial, support and help them to learn. If they learn, then only they can go to the next level. Please see, even in the what you call thinking order hierarchy, unless you know the basics, you cannot go to the higher level, isn't it? Same thing. The student must learn everything. So you should have continuous assessment. That should be the focus, so that they all learn. Our basic purpose is to help students to learn, isn't it? We are not there to fail them. So
Yes, sir.
if you have that kind of a perspective about learning, you're not worried about too much about the end semester exam. Now, unfortunately, the whole life of a student depends on the 3 hour examination. Very
Yes, sir.
sad. Very sad.
Yes.
End of the 6 months, 3 hour. Either you pass or fail. What a tragedy. What a foolish kind of system. Now, as teachers, you think. And if you become board members and tell the university and the system this is totally wrong, useless, senseless. Okay, next question.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Next question.
Sir, can I request your views about reduction of course so that the syllabus is less and the students can concentrate on whatever is being taught? It's to their
Ah,
understanding.
it's a very good question. I just want to ask you another question back to you. How much of your learning you are using today in your life?
So maybe less than 20%, I guess.
Ah, I hope you got the answer.
So that's why I asked your views, because the thing is, the curriculum is so huge. You are running as a teacher just to finish the curriculum, and you are worried that the student is not understanding, but you don't have time to go slow. You have to keep running to finish the syllabus. So that's why I wanted to understand as a syllabus builder. So how it can be done that the syllabus is reduced, but the concept of understanding is introduced.
Yeah, see, the term you are using syllabus, or in another term we call it content. It is not the important thing. The important thing is the outcome. For example, your outcome is what the student is able to do by the end of your session, isn't it? Okay. If and for doing that, what all information, what all materials, what all support is required, that is what you call is content. So content is a dependent variable. Okay. The important thing is your outcome, whether the student is able to perform that. So once you have clarity about the outcome, you don't bother about the syllabus. Now the very language you are using, the covering the syllabus, you have to complete the syllabus. You are talking about your burden. You are not worried about whether students are learning or not. See, as I stated in the beginning, learning occurs when the student you know deals with the materials, his mind is applied and process that information what is given. Where is the chance in your lecturing method for that processing? So the whole approach is it is in my view is useless. There's no wonder students are now a student, even without coming to a class, if they can study uh, by the end of maybe few days, he can pass. Why? Because they use only their memory. That is what you test in the examination also. So there's a lot of mismatch everywhere. You are not really helping them to learn. And that's why, unless you change the examination pattern, this, this system will not change. There are many studies, many researchers world over. They have, and again, that is restating that the system of examination what you call determines the learning behavior of students. Because if you ask, if you follow outcome based education method, and the examination is in the lower level of understanding, like comprehension and remembrance, they will never go to the higher level of thinking. See, we complain that our students are not able to apply their mind. You never allow them to do that in the classroom. Then how can they apply, their mind or their whatever theories they learn in the field? Because they never develop usable knowledge in the present system. You know, see, in my view, see now, uh, what do you say that in the at least in the high school level, you have to have some training in B.Ed or M.Ed, and then you know something about the pedagogy and other things. For a good teacher, you need two elements. One is you need to have a good understanding of the content, the disciplinary knowledge. Second, you also have to know, you have to learn the science of learning, how people learn. Then only you will understand the connection. Now, what about college teachers? I also went to teach without any understanding. I only see what the teachers, my teachers did. They come and do lecturing. They prepare something and blah blah. Okay, that we still follow without understanding what is learning. I am, we are not bothered whether they are learning. See, learning is possible when students' mind is applied in the material, when they are able to do that, when they are able to process that information in their mind. Okay, this is a problem here. That's why I see some light when the new policy talking about outcome-based education. Here, the important thing is that you have to help the students to learn, not teach. There is nothing called teaching. It's a fallacy, it's a myth. You cannot teach others. You can only help them to learn. Meaning, it's a joint journey. You are only helping them. So, in that way, it's a joint journey. You are partnering, student and the teacher partnering in the process of learning. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes, next one. Next question. It's 3:45, maybe another 2 or 3 minutes. If somebody is having question, please ask, otherwise we'll close it. Your time is valuable. I know that. I also have to leave and go. Hello. Anyway, nice talking to you without seeing all of you. Of course, there is a joy of seeing people and responding to, ideas and, questions and other things. But, we have limited time, I think. Therefore, if you have still questions, you can email me, or maybe you can tell the organizers to document and send to me through mail. I can share my thoughts if needed. And you're all welcome to this Marian College Kutikanam, or Marian International Institute of Management here in Kutikanam. This is a beautiful place. Welcome all of you. I understand that there are people from different parts of India, from North India and all. So if you come to Kerala, come to Kutikanam. It's a naturally beautiful, place. Rani, shall I close it now?
Thank you. Thank you for invitation, sir.
Hello. So
Hello, sir.
thank you very much. Thank you for patient listening, and thank you for asking me very soft questions, simple questions. You didn't put me into trouble. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Mm.
I think there is no more doubts. Friends, if you have any more questions, please. Otherwise, we will wind up the session. I hope everything is clear to all the participants and they have no more doubts.
I hope so. Okay,
Sir,
thank you.
sir, thank you so much. Thank you
Thank you.
thank you so much for coming to this FTP program and for giving your valuable suggestions to the participants. And we are so much blessed with you, sir. Thank you so much.
I also want to thank you
Thank you, sir.
because it's also for me also every question is a learning opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you all.
Thank you, sir. Friends, we will have the next session at 4:30. You can use the same link.
Okay, teacher.
Okay.
Hello, participants. Uh, Please check whether you have got your user ID and password for Moodle. We have sent the mail and set up the accounts for all the participants, and you might have received the user ID and password to a registered emails.